speakers on the other side have been emphasizing rights and entitlements and shortfalls and gaps therein, not recognizing or not wanting to recognize that rights and entitlements have to be produced and to be provided, and the production and provisioning precede the employment. Mr. Speaker, there is everything right in pointing to rights. We, the party of Chenny Jagan, are all for rights. We have demonstrated a passion for rights and entitlements and compassion. It's we who have moved the old age pension, removed the means test, and moved it along from where it was to what it is today. And we know, but we know, sir, we know that in the commitment to rights and entitlements and compassion, there must be a commitment to work. And we have been doing the work to provide the entitlements and rights and make them real. Make them real, not just talk. As an old saying goes, we have to be doing well before we can do something good. And also we have to be doing well so that we could be in a position to do something good. And that is what has been guiding this PPPC administration over the last 2 decades. And we will maintain and argue that it is in accord with all that Chenny Jagan stood for. He was most of all a man for great discipline in all things. Mr. Speaker, thinking of rights for food and nutrition, for example, for which I had the privilege to receive an award from the FAO in Rome, Italy last year, in recognition of the fact that Guyana had already achieved the MDG that refers to food and nutrition. We in the PPPC, in crafting this and all other of our budgets, have proceeded from the knowledge that there is cassava to eat only after someone had taken up a fork, made the beds, plowed it, tended and reaped the cassava, cooked it, and put it on the table. And there is milk to offer a needy child only after someone would have brought in the cows, put them in the pen, cut grass and fed them, milk them in the morning, and boiled the milk. There's work to be done. There's work to be done. And the reason why in our period of administration we have been doing so better is because we recognize that we have to work. There's work to be done. Mr. Speaker, we have smiled at sometimes and hearing stories about the traditions of old people in some of our villages chewing grain to make a fermentation pot. It's amusing, but I think it illustrates the point and poses the question as to whether there is not something useful that everyone could do. No one should waste any hour of any day in not working. Mr. Speaker, I demand of the honorable members on the other side to join us in the call and the challenge to everyone in Guyana to do something useful each day and to do it pleasantly too, as much as they could do, whatever their circumstance. Yes, join us in the call for each person to do his or her duty as we stand and say in our national service. We should always keep before us that the life we live and experience here in Guyana is the life that we provide to each other in exchanging the goods and the services that we each produce and provide to each other. The life we live is the life we together create here in Guyana. and complaints about poor goods and services and about life in Guyana are criticisms of us in Guyana, and they should be calls for each of us to do better in whatever we do.
Yes,
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, budgeting is key to development, both at personal and national levels. It creates a lot of difficulties for us. We heard yesterday Honorable Member Williams is talking about having our own law school in Guyana. He talked about this government not wanting to pay the kind of pay, to match the pay that those tutors receive, harmonized with Trinidad, the law schools in Trinidad and Barbados. And we would like to do it, but they're difficult questions. How could we harmonize a law school in Guyana, tutors there, their pay, lawyers with pay in Trinidad and Tobago and pay in Barbados, and not expect Mr. Williams himself, Honorable Williams himself, to come leading the call for him to get the same pay as those people at this law school. And it won't end there. It will go throughout all the judiciary, it will go to UG, it will go throughout our system, and we will be back again on the road of spiraling inflation. So we have to manage these things, and we do things in good time. That has been the key of the in good time. That has been But back to the debate, my speech here. The Honorable Minister puts budgeting, the budgeting job, the imperative of budgeting in perspective, into words worth recalling from sections 1.7 and 1.8 on pages 2 and 3. Every day, chief executive officers of large companies, small businesses, owners and heads of households, housewives grapple with the challenges of balancing amongst competing calls for finite resources. He goes on to illustrate worthwhile investment opportunities have to compete against each other for funding. Consumption needs have to be prioritized, and savings, there have to be savings, have to be accumulated for unforeseen difficult circumstances. These choices are not dramatically different at the national level. We hear over there, sir, all the places where people should get paid more, and all the places where taxes should be reduced. That's what we hear from the other side. That's what we hear from the other side. What the Honorable Minister is saying here is that as much as we would like to, we cannot do all the good things that we would like to do. Not in this budget. Indeed, perhaps never in any budget. The issue is not that there are good things left undone, but which of the good things that have been provided for in the budget we should have foregone. That is the question. That is the question. Not the good things left undone, but the good things that we have included that we should leave out so that to accommodate something else that might have been judged more important. Mr. Speaker, let me take some time out here and commend our women, and in particular our mothers. I remember my own. Many of us would think of our mothers, and many of whom might not have been familiar with the word budget, but would have had to develop budgeting to a fine art as they contrive to make ends meet. Mr. Speaker, in paragraph 1.8, the Honorable Minister develops for the nation the tasks that he outlined in paragraph 1.7 with these words. As a country, we need to make the investments that are central to raising the quality of life for for all our people. At the same time, we need to be constantly attentive to guarding the financial sustainability that we have worked so hard to achieve and which would be so easily lost if the wrong choices are made. And Mr. Speaker, when we talk about the spiraling inflation we had in the 70s and 80s, it is not to cast blame on anybody, but it's to remind us as a nation that we have to keep the books balanced and that there's lots of things that we have to hold horses on until we could do it sustainably. We need to implement the catalytic and transformative projects because we see a truly modern Guyana emerge, to take advantage of the opportunities of the future and realize our long-term growth potential. At the same time, we need to address urgently the local nuisances that affect the day-to-day lives of our people. This is what our minister was saying, and I find very germane. In all aspects of productive activity, we need to endeavor constantly to do more. At the same time, we need to endeavor constantly to do what we do better. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, we need to be advocating and demonstrating that theme from GT&T, getting better every day. If we are to build, if we Guyanese are to build a better Guyana for all of us here in Guyana. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I invite all Guyana, whatever your political or other affiliation, to join in celebrating the successes of our country, which we have together achieved. Last year, 2013, was the 8th year of steady expansion. The Honorable Minister and all of us in government are extremely gratified. And we know that whilst we have set out, or sought to set out an enabling environment, we know that the success is a manifestation of our citizens' response and their work. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to make some comments here about that the honorable member who spoke to me, spoke about just now, spoke to. I'm trying to fit it in the best position. He spoke about monies in the various agencies. I would like to point out to him that these have been monies that have been accumulated over some years. I would like to point out to him too that they have been transferred from time to time to the consolidated fund, that they should be seen as local reserves. And I can tell you something because I was, as minister responsible for mining and minerals and of the GMC. In the early days, when we were under very tight strictures, one of the things that one could do, and somebody mentioned it in looking at Management Palace, was the amount of money spent on security and army. And we had a situation where the Bell X-12 helicopter was indeed one of the biggest servicing, whether it is A or B or C, I can't recall, but it needed a lot of money. It needed a lot of money. And you know where that money came from? That money came from the GGMC. If not, we would have also heard, issues about the helicopter there, a year, they didn't get fixed. Money had to be got for it to be fixed. And in the circumstances, and more than that, you would read papers on off-budget financing. Let's recognize there's something in all jurisdictions, it's recognized as a way of handling and maybe giving flexibilities to executive governments. Flexibility which they exercise for the good and benefit of the nation. You just go and read some of the things that the Prime Minister in not so long ago in England did in Blair and so on. Read some of the things, some of the big things. All this talk about corruption. You might recall, sir, that there was some investigation going, I don't know the right name, commission or whatever was going there, and it seemed to be talking about something that people believe, not 2 cents, but $500 million might have been involved in sales of airplanes and armaments and so on. And at a certain time, Blair said, this is it. It's no longer to proceed further, it's not in the nation's interest. So let us see what the developed countries do today when their interests are challenged. And let us see what they do when they were 100 years ago, where we are now today. Where comparably we are closer to today. Let us also look at that. Don't let's get carried away about the things that they are talking about now. I would talk to Mr. as we hear, I talk to Mr. Honorable Member African spoke about spectrum and the spectrum auction in Jamaica. There are 2 ways generally of allocating spectrum. One is an auction, and usually it's auction for the period of the license, 10, 20 years. And the second way is to charge fees, annual fees. When there is a great attraction to get into a place, auction is the way to go. When there is not that big attraction, fees is the way to go. And in any case, it's not free money, whether it's auction or whether it's annual fees, it comes out of the earnings of the company. It comes out of the charges that you pay, the permitted charges that you pay. So it's not free money that comes out of space. It's money that the customers pay, whether they pay it in auction fees or whether they pay it in annual fees. It's one way or the other. And to talk about the approaches, sir, I will take the opportunity to assure you that this government has been studying these approaches. We had an expert from India in, and looking at the charges over many states and countries, usually the total charges for telecoms companies vary between about 6% and 16% in terms of the average take for government on their revenue. And on the question too of properties in the minerals and natural resources area, here again, our approach has been, particularly seeing that Guyana has not had a big record of success in these areas, no big economic activities in this area, we have followed what is one way of doing it too. That is, first come, first serve. First person who comes and applies, because generally not too many people apply. They come and apply, and you give consideration. First come, first serve. We did try, I think in the 80s, some oil auction, but as far as I know, it didn't go so well because Guyana didn't have a name and a tradition as yet in our business. And many of the businessmen would say, why should I put all this money up in front? It's better for you that you let me keep this money, don't have to pay big auction fees, and invest it in the prospecting, so that you could know if you have something, and then when we know you have something, you could pick it up in royalties. And let me tell you some more, because some people write those kind of reports that we hear. You have to take it like Minister, like the Honorable Member Greenidge had said sometime, we have to take some of it with a bit of a salt, with a bit of grains of salt. In the case of mining and oil properties, in the 90s, when we were not having much happening, bilaterals, our friendly bilateral countries and multilaterals would come and give me advice, and they would say, you know, you need to be more attractive, you need to cut royalties, you need to give more incentives so that people would come. You're not attracting people. You have to do more to attract people. And then, just about 2009, 10, when it seemed like oil is going to be found tomorrow, you just got somebody just got to strike the ground somewhere and oil will be gushing up. Those same sets of people came around and were telling me, you know that you have to look and see how much you could get. And once contracts are sacred, or some other like sacred, these some legal term, when contracts are like that, maybe you can read it over and you could see that you should be able to get more than you think you had committed to or before. And these again were the same multilaterals and the same friendly governments that come and advise me in the 90s that we must be giving more, and then come back in 2009 and telling me that maybe we were giving too much, and we should read the documents again closely. And one of them did feel a little bit uneasy. He said, you know, you can't break contracts, there's stamp or something like that. But you can always read it a bit more closely, and you might find you could get more than you thought you would have gotten when you first read. So, comrade, let's get realistic of what the world is really like. I'm talking about our young people who are going out. It's time we get in and you think about this in a more developed way. If we have someone has a son or daughter that's doing well, whether as an accountant, a physics, an engineer, or whatever, doctor, chances are they can be encouraged to go and see if they can get their names up in the stars, up on the headlines in some one of the developed places, cities in the US. We're under the same pressure like people in some county in Alabama or in Dakota in the US. We're under the same pressure, and the young people go. And remittances come back too. We have to develop a much more up-to-date view of the world and our position in it. We have to develop it. Mr. Speaker, continuing my advocacy of our budget, I want to refer to and commend our continuing large allocations to education and to health, so that we and more so our sons and daughters will be healthier and better equipped to build this land of ours. We may see the allocation to infrastructure as investments in the improving of our work, investments for the future. I think that on the other hand, our allocation to culture, youth, and sports is dedicated to the enjoyment of the satisfaction of us today, of us, the present generation of Guyanese. Even as I agree with the Minister that there is therein in culture, youth, and sports the basis for development of careers in culture and sports, and also culture and sports industries, but I see that as giving ourselves some satisfaction. You know, in the discussions about growth and development, and they talk about high saving rates, but they also say that you have to keep people happy too at the same time and satisfied, so that they can continue working with enthusiasm and living with enthusiasm. And so I think we got a good balance here again, with the allocations to our culture, youth, and sports. The synthetic athletic track being completed at Lenora, together with other major facilities built in the last decade, and some others that the minister has in the works in his mind, talking to him sometime, he maybe let out a few secrets. They will equip Guyana with a complete set of facilities for major events of which Guyanese can be proud. Mr. Speaker, there's much to be pleased about in Guyana. And we could be pleased about our larger private enterprises and also about our persons that we know in the private sectors. But there are also many smaller persons, self-employed, who are worthy of celebration too. And from amongst whom we would look to arise many of the bigger businesses of the future. In my walks about the town and elsewhere in our country, I'm pleased to note how improved are the various displays at our arcades, malls, and mini malls, and the selection and pricing of items calculated to meet the pockets of all citizens. Indeed, sir, I hear now that in some ways things have reversed, and people from Barbados come to Guyana to shop when we used to do the other way. There is much for us. There is much about which we can be proud. And our pride should be the basis for us to accept and work for a higher level of order and discipline. As past Minister of Mines, I want to join in commending our small and medium-scale gold and diamond miners. But the very growth in mining and the number of dredging operations have brought us to a point where what we used to do, we can no longer do. We have to raise the bar. So the bar is being raised, and we have to get up to that higher bar. We have to reduce negative environmental and social impacts. And in particular, maybe let me say, and I hope I have built up enough trust with my mining friends to say that we have to give up our higher moves and the accompanying shocks, which are often source of alcohol and drugs and points from which crime often originates. We have to do that. I want to say that I was in Ibamada. Some of my other colleagues are briefing the villages there on the Upper Mazaruni, proposed Upper Mazaruni, new Upper Mazaruni hydro development. And as we landed and met by one of the old miners here, Mr. Tafares, he said to me, "Did you notice or come now as you flew in, all the buildings there?" And he said that as far as you know, as you've been saying, many of our people here from elsewhere in Guyana, coastland and so on, they live here 10, 11 months a year. And it was time they start thinking about themselves as residents of Ibamada. He said, well, they've started to do it, and now you see a big town, and it was quite striking. It was quite striking. And we met other people too, like Captain Bengamza, who maybe even 20 years ago had deserted the coast for Ibamada at the time of Christmas time. So things are happening, good things are happening. It calls for some patience, and it calls for talking and interacting and building up a sense of being on a team. But Mr. Speaker, honorable members, something of which we could not be proud is the way we drop our garbage all around our city and through most of our coastlands and inland towns. Both money and a major challenge in change in attitudes and behavior are required to get to a higher level of responsibility and to reverse this shameful blot on our nation. The Honorable Minister has provided the money, a lot of money, $1 billion in budget 2040, of which $500 million is for the city of Georgetown. We, the citizens of Guyana, have to provide the change in our habits, in our behavior and practice. At the end of this cleanup campaign, we should have systems in place to allow us to stay clean, so that not only Georgetown, but all of Guyana will be worthy of being thought of as garden city and garden country. A city and a country in which tourists find pleasing and welcoming, and in which they feel safe. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, there's great reason why we should celebrate our achievements and become comfortable with them. There's one reason why I want to talk this and want us to feel comfortable. Because we've been talking about FDIs, foreign direct investment. And with foreign direct investments come the people who bring the investments. The ones who have the money and the ones who have the techniques and technologies and practices and systems and so on. We need to feel secure if we are to consistently welcome foreign direct investment. With a population of about 3/4 million, and I'm not going to get into the row as to whether it's 750, 760,000 or all of that. And I haven't had a preview of the census yet. With a population of about 3/4 million in this large country of ours, and given the world of today, our economy and society could not but be open to the world, and very open to the world. And I don't know if my good friend, the Honorable Minister, would talk sometime about the openness of the economy. You guys think we're like 25% open, we're only 35% that our goods and services are produced locally, or some things like that. But this is certainly not my field. Many of our people have gone to all parts of the world, have found welcome and have done well. And we in turn need to develop an understanding that will allow us to welcome consistently people from all over the world, to help us to develop this country and to allow us to enjoy much of what the world has to offer today. There's a need for, at all levels, to think about this. At many of our meetings at Business Fora, we speak about the possibilities of Guyana becoming a bridgehead between Brazil and South America and the Caribbean on the other side of North America. But as we travel down some of our streets, even coming from one of those meetings, as we walk down the street and we see some Brazilian establishment, we